what they call it, like you are provoking them. So these murderous Islamic terrorists in northern part of Nigeria, they have the backing of those in government who indeed have been shielding them. Listen, whenever they are attacking these communities that are also Nigerians, so under Bukwari, the military, right, the police and others will tell you that order from above told them not to react to it. So innocent people, women, children, elderly, including the handicapped, the disabled, right, are slaughtered by this murderous terrorists. In Kaduna, when El Rufai was their governor, in fact, the idea of changing the names of some communities to Islamic name or whatever Fulani name or whatever name that they chose, after they must have attacked these communities, chased the survivors away to the IDP camps, then these terrorists, they occupy these communities as well. I mean, they stay in the crime scene. The rest of the world watches, probably, the rest of the world just watches in horror. But in Nigeria, everything to placate and make these terrorists, these Islamic terrorists, right, to be comfortable is what those their sponsor in government have always been like promoting. Now, here is the other part of that presentation by this bishop. I have more to add myself, but watch this.
Christian villages, there are now attempts by the Islamic Council of Nigeria and various Islamic groups to impose Sharia law on the Christian populations. Already, 12 states in the north of Nigeria are under this sectarian religious law, and attempts to extend the same to the south of Nigeria, which they have started. This month, governors in the north decided appropriately to close all schools and education institutions during the months of Ramadan, leaving millions of students without learning opportunity for 5 weeks. We live in fear because at any point it can be our turn to be killed, but to remain silent is to die twice. So, I have chosen to speak. I speak on behalf of the millions who are in the camps. In Benue State, in Makurdi Diocese alone, in my diocese, I have about 9 camps. 9. On the 5th of March, which was Ash Wednesday, we visited one of the camps, and many of my priests and religious went to the other camps, distributed them to begin the Ash Wednesday with our faithful who are there, because we are the voice of the voiceless. We have to talk for the defenseless. We have to talk about the weak and those who cannot talk about themselves. In one of the camps called the Mega Camp, there were over 3,000 inmates of that camp, and which was a record given to us by government. I speak on behalf of them and those children who have no husband, who have no father, and even their own voices taken away by the politicians who promised to help them, but have become the willing tools of the jihadists because they are talking politically correct statements, looking for next elections to come. I speak on behalf of those whose loved ones have been killed, but no one has even offered a word of consolation to them. I speak on behalf of the thousands of young girls who have been adopted and raped because no one, not even the media, mentions them anymore. Foremost, I speak on behalf of my flock who are unable to worship freely and unable to return to their ancestral farms and homes because that land has been ruthlessly taken from them by the armed herdsmen. And where they say they want to live in peace with the natives, if you must farm, you have to pay tax to hire the land which belongs to you. That is slavery, to say the least about it. As prosperous Nigeria is in African continent, and I tell you, if there's outbreak of war in Nigeria, no country around us, Chad, Niger, Ghana, Guinea, Togo, no country can contain the population that will flee to these places. No country can be able to house over 5 million refugees. It's not possible because of that. And if 1 million refugees run to Chad and Niger, they'll collapse that country because there'll be no plan to take care of them. So we have to be very careful. Today, I urge you all to use every means within your mandate to start developing a strong and good relationship with Nigeria, where you know that when you speak of human dignity, you are also speaking of the same God-given right you believe is unalienable. Consider that Nigeria can be your ally. but it cannot be one where half the population is in the process of being murderously eliminated. Work with us, the churches, and other Nigerians of goodwill. We are working for a peaceful and prosperous society, and our desperate plight has been set aside U.S. policy for too long, to the cost of thousands of lives. Concretely, I request and I plead, I ask you to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. This has both a practical and diplomatic meaning to signal that you are paying attention to what happens to us and elsewhere in the world. Because the policies the government is trying to put in place, so that to return the IDPs, build camps for them, relocate them from their homes, it is not durable and it will not work, because the government has already the population that is not able to take care of. And then you have over millions of people in the camps, and you want to relocate them to where? And if you do, let's take that you do. How many houses or rooms will you give me who has 5 children, another one has 3, another one has 2, and what will I be doing for a living? These people previously never begged anybody for food. They were managing their lives, training their children, and building their homes. So nobody should have deceived us on the guys that you're going to resettle the IDPs. They have no jobs. So where you set them, what will be their place? And by the way, the fundamental question remains, if you resettle them to other camps or build places for them, what happens with the ancestral lands? Who takes care of them? And this is whereby I feel the government is complicit on this issue. Because these terrorists, Fulanis, displace them, kill people, and then occupy the place, and then change names, nomenclatures of these towns. For what reason? So we want to let the people go back to their homes and help for them to rebuild their lives. I implore this august body to insist on the return and rehabilitation of all the IDPs to their ancestral lands, and not to relocate them to other constructed camps elsewhere, which is an invented solution now being pushed in the Benue State government. And I tell you, Nigeria government can do that once they have to be accountable. Because I know Nigeria, under the auspices of ECOMOG, was able to reinstate constitutional government in Sierra Leone and Liberia. And they can do that now. We have the capacity, but because the leaders that are not prepared. And I think that's whereby I look, it's not just conspiracy of silence, it is aiding, abetting, and supporting these terrorists to keep doing their work. This is my plea. Thank you very much for this attention. Christian villages.
Bishop, again, to further add the context to what the bishop, presented to this, United States Congress on Foreign Affairs. They've been receiving reports of the persecution of Christians all over the world, and Nigeria came on top, where tens of thousands of people have been slaughtered. And that is their story. Their story is that of a story of people who are unfortunate supposedly in their own country, and the government of their own country is in bed with jihadists, terrorists, that will exterminate them, kill as many of them as possible, displace as many of them as possible, chase them away from their ancestral land and ancestral homes, chase them to some makeshift camps called IDP camps. Nigeria is not at war, they will tell you. Nigeria is not at war. Therefore, don't come and cause war in Nigeria, but tens of thousands of Nigerians are being slaughtered, right? Year in, year out. Nigerians are living in IDP camps, refugee camps. The word refugee, right, comes from, what do you call it? The combination of war or natural disasters. But in this case, Nigeria is not facing any natural disaster. The only disaster, which is a man-made disaster, is this terrorism sponsored, funded by APC. Egbekegbe. Now, APC, Egbekegbe, is responsible for the terrorism in Nigeria. And that is why, while the supposed Nigerians they swore to protect, right, are being chased, after being killed, others being chased into the refugee camps, okay? And with the impression that Nigeria is not at war. Nigeria is at war because the jihadists, the Islamic jihadists from northern Nigeria, the Fulani from Futajalon, Futagalon at Futa Sorrow, Futa Sadness, who's the sponsor, have managed to, to leverage on power, right? These Fulani terrorists, right? They have been the only one that has waged war against the indigenous people of Nigeria. The people of the Middle Belt part of Nigeria, they have paid so much with their lives and blood, right? That the criminal government, the terrorist government of APC in Nigeria is actually promoting this jihadist, this terrorism by encouraging people to leave their ancestral homes for a makeshift refugee camps, while the terrorists that chased them away from their homes have continued to occupy these communities. In southern Kaduna, where the Fulani terrorists killed the people of southern Kaduna for straight 8 years under this little finger, Kaduna little finger, hellfire, they succeeded in not only chasing the people away from their homes, from their communities, they also succeeded in changing the names of these communities. And what is the solution brought by the APC? They said we should learn to live with our killers. Yeah, they said we should stop, saying Fulani terrorists. We should call them artsmen. But we all know that the Boko Haram's government did everything within its power to disarm the indigenous people when they used to, they used to have the capacity to defend themselves against this murderous Islamist, jihadist. You understand? They used to. But Boko Haram's government came, they disarmed them. And those who failed to be disarmed were summarily arrested by the military, while the terrorists continued to roam everywhere, unhindered, non-stop. Today in Nigeria, again, this is just for all of you watching me, okay? If you are watching me from southern part of Nigeria, and somehow you are a product of a social conditioning, the ones that that wants to believe that the whole problem is being exaggerated simply because you have been programmed to feel that way. Let me tell you this. You see all this act of terrorism in northern part of Nigeria, as much as it is what puts Nigeria on the map as a terrorist capital of West Africa, right? Nevertheless, we believe, and in fact, factually, right, believes that if you look at their victims, they are mostly Christians. These Christian communities in northern part of Nigeria is what they have somehow like programmed to be wiped out totally. Like the bishop said, the supposed political class, because out of the 19 states from this political northern part of Nigeria, which includes the middle belt part of Nigeria, 12 of them is considered the Sharia states. The Sharia states, making it look like the people living there, they are Muslims. That is not true. The idea of their Sharia in the first place, they said, was going to be just for the Muslims. Today, we have had their stories of non-Muslims who have been like tried, sentenced to death, and others even stoned to death by their Sharia courts. The communities where people are like non-Muslims, so to say, they have not just only been subjected to like a second-class citizens in their own supposed country, indigenous people to this land, from Adamawa to Benue, from Adamawa to Sokoto, to Kano, to Kaduna, to Borno, to Kerbi, to Zamfara, to all these areas. They will make you believe that they are Islamic places, but they are not. Let me tell you something as well. You see, these 12 states from this core Sharia North, right? The Christians there are considered as second-class citizens to start with. They have no real rights, even though they have a fake constitution that says they are Nigerians and they have rights. They do not have any. in these areas, right, if you are a Christian, you do not have any political leverage as well. You dare not aspire to, to any higher political office in this Sharia North. Christians in these communities or in these states, they have been, sort of rendered more or less like comatose, like they are nothing. And therefore exposing them more to this terrorism of the Fulani, as well as others, terrorism in the northern part of Nigeria. So you do not have any right to hold any political office in this place if you are a Christian, even though you are a Nigerian, right? And indigenous to these areas, right? You do not have any right to. In some areas where people have been chased to the IDP camps, right? And those who survived, who stayed back, have been forced to pay taxes to these terrorists as well in Nigeria. Yes, you heard me right. Those communities that are currently being occupied by these terrorists, Nigerian government classify them as non-governed areas. Can you believe that? Non-governed areas are areas where terrorists have taken over, and Nigerian government has ceased to exist. I mean, they have ceased to exist in these areas. The lives and the destiny of all these Nigerians in this part of Nigeria now lies in the hands of their murderous jihadists, the Fulani terrorists, and other terrorists of like mind. So we were told that to learn to live with our killers, and our killers called us infidels. So as an infidel, you do not have any real life. And that is why some of them actually rose up and said they were shutting down schools because of Ramadan. Nigeria is meant to be a country of, all religions, right? Christians, Muslims, and non-Christian, non-Muslim alike, or whatever you choose to possibly be. But in the northern part of Nigeria, which is the idea that is now spreading, it has spread to the middle belt part of Nigeria. That is a place where you see like a belt is in the middle. So the middle beltans are like the armor, the shield for the rest of the southern part of Nigeria, holding back, this murderous Fulani terrorists, not much longer, right? Because they still managed to get down to the south, the southwest, the southeast, as well as the Niger Delta part of Nigeria. And they are doing one thing, just one single thing: attack people in their villages, chase them away until you chase them to the IDP camp, then occupy the land. This has been the modus operandi of these terrorists and their sponsor. And of course, their sponsor, Boko Haram, is the chief sponsor of terrorism in Nigeria. He spent his 8 years compensating terrorists, rehabilitating terrorists. And the Nigerians who are their victims, they have been left in the, in the lodge. They have been left on their own to go and fend for themselves. To the point that running away from your own lands to the IDP camps in Nigeria does not guarantee that they won't still come for you. These terrorists still went after those who escaped their gun, their bullets in their different communities. They still went after them by kidnapping their children, to rape them. Some of them sold as slaves. This is happening. And you may ask, what is Nigeria doing? If Nigeria claimed to be spending over, 100 billion naira a year rehabilitating terrorists, not prosecuting them, rehabilitating terrorists, because they swore by the Holy Quran that they won't do it again. Now, they have a system that rewards terrorism. And therefore, what is that reward for being a Nigerian? What is your reward, right, for being a Nigerian? A Nigerian that got attacked and chased away from his own homes, right, to the IDP camp. What is your own reward from your own government? Zilch, zero. So we implore those who are considering sanctioning Nigeria, because right now the U.S. Congress Committee on Foreign Affairs, listening to these horrible tales, right? They are currently recommending that Nigeria should be sanctioned. Well, I don't think sanctioning Nigeria should be the goal. There are individuals responsible. And I bet that, America, as sophisticated as America claimed to be, America will have all the information of this terrorist sponsor and those terrorist spokesperson, those who have been defending these terrorists at any given, fora. They should